So I watched the TED Talk, The Science Behind Dramatically Better Conversation by Charles Duhigg, who is a journalist and an author, and he used to be a journalist for the New York Times. So in this talk, really what he hits hard about is that every conversation has three parts: practical, what needs to get done; emotional, how people feel; and then the third is social, which is day to day, how are you doing, relating to each other conversation. So often the reason there's miscommunication and noise is people are on different parts of conversation. For instance, somebody comes to me with an emotional conversation and wants me to be sympathetic, but I'm stuck on practical and trying to find fixes for them, but they don't really want my fixes. So neither of us are getting what we want to get out of it. So I picked this TED Talk because the title really caught my eye, to be honest. I feel like conversation is something that a lot of people just are not very good at, whether they want to admit it or not. And how to improve dramatically in a 12-minute video really caught my eye, and I figured there's a good chance that it probably hits close to home on more ways than one. So, communication techniques and what stood out. He used a lot of stories throughout the entire TED Talk. He was constantly telling stories about himself or others, people he would talk to. He used personal experiences, and then conversations from a doctor talking about cancer diagnosis and how he switched from a practical conversation into an emotional conversation. And as soon as he got people to start talking emotionally, he was able to implement his advice a lot better. A big technique he used was out the gate leaving people with a prompt. And he started with asking people to go up to a stranger and ask them the last time they cried. And that's a very hard-hitting prompt, in my opinion, and I think it's something a lot of people are uncomfortable with. But then he went into his whole TED Talk and broke down, his ideas of communication, and then came back to it at the end. And having that recall, I think, really not only drug people in the beginning, but kept them at the end. I thought the slides were very clear and easy to follow. It was a decently short TED Talk compared to other ones, but I thought it flowed really well, and I found that I usually trail off during TED Talks, but that one kept me engaged throughout the whole 12 minutes. His voice was very, very calm, very matter of fact, but also very constant and just hard hitting. And I think that's exactly what I'm looking for personally whenever I watch a TED Talk. Application to construction. So I think knowing the type of talk somebody is coming to you with in construction means a lot. I can't count the amount of times just last summer that I was sitting in the office and somebody comes in just really upset about, it could be anything from their space they're working in to the time frame they've been given, just because it was a school project and it was a really tight schedule and really hard to meet. So I think for me, when people come into the office and they're telling me they can't meet a schedule and they're just come in a lot more heated, or maybe it's a conflict with another trade, being able to understand if this is an emotional conversation or a practical conversation that they really just need a fix for. A lot of times it is practical, and it's, I need to get out there and figure out who's entitled to what space, who I need to call next, and how this needs to get fixed. But I think first, if you realize somebody's upset, kind of asking them, why do you feel this way? Figuring out if it's pressure from the office and it's really nothing to do with this project, or sometimes it might even be something at home. I think there's a lot of other things that happen in a construction site that you really don't realize, and being able to be a friend and understand each other allows for better communication later. Asking better questions, like what's getting in the way, especially in safety, asking if something's unsafe or is it unclear. If something's unclear in a drawing, they come up to me, well, how can we fix this? Why do you need this? When do you need this? Asking the right questions to get clear responses and being able to help somebody else later on. And that will also build trust, in my opinion. I think being able to ask the right question and sharing challenges with somebody can make people want to come up to you later and really allow for a smoother project overall. So my reflection on this, so I feel like I'm often stuck in the practical thinking. I think that a lot of times, back to my personal life, I think a lot of people come up to me with an emotional conversation, and I immediately switch my brain to, okay, well, how can we fix this? How can we make it better? And in the reality, they know how to make it better, and they don't really want to talk to me about it. They just kind of want to open up. I think if I was able to open up and sympathize a lot better, I could have better conversations with people. I could be more open for people to have conversations with me, and then there'd be a lot less noise. And I think people would leave conversations with me with a strong relationship, and then two, a lot more understanding on a lot more understanding on just what's happening personally in their life versus being frustrated about me trying to get a fix that they don't want. So, in conclusion, I think great communication is more than giving clear instructions. It's more about matching the conversation that the people came up to you, whether if that's tasks, feelings, or relationships. Day-to-day conversation, emotional conversation, a coworker ranting to you, or most times in the construction industry, is it a practical conversation and you need to fix to it right now. So I think being a leader who can do this is going to allow for a lot more movement in my future career and being a lot more reachable from those around me.